Well, good morning, everybody. You are live with PrepperCon Radio. My name is Scott Stallings, as usual, Mr. PrepperCon, and I've got Shane over here, the Prepared Guy.
Prepared Guy.
You can find us at PrepperCon.com and PreparedGuy.com. If you want information on gear, tools, fun stuff, just follow us. We are excited to be here. We have a good show today. We're going to kick off our new platform, which is Prepare, Protect, Survive, and Thrive. First week of the month will always be Prepare. Second week will always be Protect. Third week will be Survive. And the fourth week will be Thrive. If we have a fifth week, we'll just go nuts and have a good time. But we will be bringing in guests pretty much on every show because they bring a different level of expertise and a different opinion that I think you're going to really enjoy. Today we've actually got Spencer Schwendiman. He's actually the founder of Everyman Preparedness, which is a great resource. If you're new to prepping, if you're a veteran, it's a great resource. He's actually a student right now doing a degree. It's in
Emergency management, yeah.
Emergency management. Get a little closer to the mic.
A little closer, yeah.
Doing a degree in emergency management, and he's just super passionate about preparedness. So, glad to have you in the studio today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Where are you going to school again?
I'm at UVU.
UVU. Hey, all right,
Cool.
there you go.
Yeah,
The Wolverines.
Yeah.
I got my associate's degree there.
Yeah, they're the only school in the state that has the emergency management degree, so.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Awesome. So, let's, before we get into that, let's talk about the major earthquake that happened in Arizona. And when I say major, I'm kidding. They've actually had a 4.1 and a 4.7 out in the middle of nowhere, out past Sedona, but they had a 3.4 I believe it was Scottsdale.
Yeah.
You know, and they hadn't had anything for over 20 years. And so, a lot of people freaked out. It's kind of funny. You see memes right away online of, cactus leaning against a house, we will rebuild. And it gets kind of humorous, but, that's why we're here. That's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about the actual issues, the things that you're going to face.
I think one thing you'll want to follow is suspiciousobservers.org. They're also on YouTube. And we had him up to our PrepperCon Expo back in April. One thing that he'll tie some of these earthquakes to are earth spots and how they relate to the sun and so forth. So, you get me on there?
Yeah, you're spiking the meters.
Okay.
You're like an earthquake over there.
Okay, how's that? Does that sound good?
Go up a little bit.
Up a little more.
Forgive us for testing.
Okay.
We're having fun here.
No, too high. Okay,
There you go.
that sounds good. Anyway, so suspiciousobservers.org, they talk about how the sun relates to not only the weather here on Earth, but also earthquakes. So very interesting. Check that out.
Awesome.
That's cool.
So today we're going to be talking about kind of the non-prepper. Wow, we've already got a caller. Let's check him out before we go on air with anything else. This is always fun.
Give it a try.
All right, caller, you are on the air with us. You're live. What's your name?
Well, I'm looking to, is Paul Jensen still there? I want to connect with him before he leaves.
Oh, they are all gone. This is PrepperCon Radio.
Oh.
You have any questions on emergency preparedness?
No, I'm just trying to reach Paul.
All right. Well, you missed it. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay,
Bye-bye. Okay, that was funny. All right.
No Paul.
No Paul. All right, let's jump right into it. So we wanted to talk about the 5 things that non-preppers need to be doing. Non-prepper is anyone that's either A, new to preparedness, trying to figure it out, never heard of it, and most of your friends and family. That's just kind of the reality of it. So Spencer, give us what's your number one thing that non-preppers you think need to be preparing for?
Well, my number one thing always is people just need to get informed. They need to realize what's going on around them. Even just a small 3.4 earthquake, because that's kind of what got me into it too. Was just a tiny little earthquake, but it scared the crap out of my wife and myself to the idea of we have nothing prepared if there was a problem. And so I always like to say that people need to go out and they need to figure out, what are the disasters that are going to be facing them. Today I hit snow coming up to the studio. A blizzard in Utah is, heavy snowfall, that's normal.
Yeah.
It can be kind of hard to get to a store or anything like that, so having just a little bit of food.
And if it's bad enough, obviously you're going to be locked at home or locked, we're not going to have the trucks moving, they're not going to be bringing resupplies to the stores because everything's an on-demand situation. I mean, we're blessed in the fact that it's easy to go get so many things, but it also creates a laziness where people just don't take that time to get themselves ready in case something happens. They think, oh, I'm always going to be okay. So I think that's a really great point. What's your second point?
Number 2 was to make a plan. I'm a big proponent of plans. You know, as fun as the gear and everything, all the cool stuff is, if you don't have a plan, it's useless. You know,
I completely agree. I was going to say the same thing. For my very first thing that we need to do is be aware. You need to be aware. You need to pay attention to what's around you, your environment, and spend some time. Learn about geopolitics, all kinds of stuff like that. And then also, my second is also slightly different. Is just realize that you're vulnerable.
Yeah.
We are vulnerable. We live differently now than we did 100 years ago, and we need to realize that.
Definitely.
So one of the funniest things is I'm gonna call myself out. So I've been doing this since I was 13, but when I moved to California, I'd never been in an earthquake, and I thought I could remember, what I learned in 5th grade. Get under the desk in school, right?
Mm-hmm. Stand in the doorway.
And I remember that in Colorado is where I grew up. I remember we did more tornado drills than anything else. Everybody runs into the hall. Everybody gets organized, walks into the hallway, gets down on the floor in the corner, and covers their neck. And earthquake drill, I believe we did it like maybe once or twice. And we got under our desks. And I'm like, looking back on that now, those desks were so rickety, we would have been destroyed. So here I am in California. I'd been there for like 3 weeks. I just started a new job, transitioned from Arizona to California, and I'm talking to all my employees. It's kind of a bullpen setup, and all of a sudden this earthquake hits, and you hear this big crack. And then the shock wave starts coming through the building. We were less than a quarter mile away from the epicenter. And it was a 5.3. So it wasn't tiny, but it wasn't huge. And it's shaking the building, and I feel the wave, and I'm like looking around like a deer caught in headlights, like, oh, what do I do? I'm going to get hit by a car. This is great. And I'm looking at my employees, and they all jump out of their seats. They're getting on the ground, and we have these huge oak desks. One of them's climbing under an oak desk, and they're all yelling at me to move to a doorway, and I'm like, oh yeah, good idea. And here I am, Mr. Emergency Preparedness in my mind, and I was totally caught off.
You froze.
Off guard. Froze. And anyone can have that happen.
Oh yeah.
So I've made it a kind of a plan in my life to rehash my skills, update my plans. I think that's the biggest thing people forget is to create a plan of action, and then to practice it. And so now, the earthquake avoidance or safety protocols that I was taught as a kid are no longer in effect. You don't climb under a rickety desk. You use the triangle of safety. If you want to learn more about that, go to the greatshakeout.org. It's actually coming up in April, just about the same time as PrepperCon. But the whole point is they teach you about physics. They teach you about safety and the rigidity of a stable wall. Like your load-bearing walls are going to be the safest wall to get up against. Stay away from windows. And oftentimes you don't have time to really move anywhere. But they talk about a concept that I kind of nicknamed turtling. And little kids love this. If you yell earthquake, my niece, she'll yell turtle. She'll get on the ground and kind of cover herself up like she's a little turtle in a shell, put her hand over her neck, and then grab onto whatever's stable next to her, whether that's the wall, whether it's a big sturdy couch. But she knows not to go near the windows. She knows to stay somewhere safe. If there's something that's a swinging hazard above her, she hurries and crawls along the wall when she gets down to another safe spot. So it's a lot of fun. And we've done that drill with all my nieces and nephews, well, all the ones that can coherently understand what we're talking about. Got a couple 1-year-olds that they don't really listen very well, but they're super cute. But that's the reality is it's so easy to get caught off guard if you don't have a plan.
If you are aware, you can be prepared.
Your mic's still coming across really quiet, so I hope the listeners are okay out there. If you want to chime in on the conversation, if you think any of these are wrong or if you have a different opinion, feel free to join in the conversation. The phone number here is 801-254-5855. That's 254-5855. This is PrepperCon Radio on KTKK, K-Talk Radio. You can also join us in the conversation on Twitter. You can join us in the conversation on Facebook. And you can even just knock on the door if you want to.
And I think earthquake is a good place to start because that's one of our primary concerns here in Utah. But as I think of being prepared, as we were talking, the system that we live in is very delicate and fragile. As to transportation, as to power, it's very, very fragile that way. So you need to be aware of that, first of all, that it's fragile. And as Spencer was saying, you need to start putting together a plan about what you're going to do about that. And of course, I have my steps as well.
Yeah. Yeah, the plan is actually one of the biggest things, like Scott was saying, because if you don't have a plan, then something will happen and you'll just freeze. If you don't have that thing to prepare, that thing to practice, what are you going to do, And so that's one of the biggest things, I think, that is overlooked, is that plan. Really, my next thing, though, is to determine your needs. Like you said, you have nieces and nephews, so in your family, you need to determine, what do you need to bring with you? We were talking a little bit yesterday about coloring books and crayons, like with kids, you really have to have entertainment. And even with adults, I keep Uno cards in all of my 72, 96-hour kits.
I've got playing cards. I've got Conflicted, the card game.
That's a good one.
If you're a prepper, you know what that is. If you don't, go check it out. They were at our PrepperCon event last year, but it's a deck of cards, just your standard playing cards, and it's actually got on there survival questions. So you can actually play two different types of games. One game is quiz each other and how would you survive this situation, or how would you prepare for that situation. We actually played that on air last year as we were getting ready for the show here on K-Talk. Had a lot of interesting answers, had a lot of fun, had some weird questions. Maybe we'll resurrect some of that later as we keep going. But absolutely, it's important to have something to keep your mind calm and to take your mind off the trauma, because it's not a normal situation.
So Spencer, what do you say that are in determining needs? What are your basic needs that you would determine?
I break it down to 7. You need shelter. You absolutely need shelter, and water is the next one. Then you need some food. Hygiene is the number one killer in a disaster. That's what people don't realize.
Sanitation.
The sanitation. When you're flushing toilet, stop flushing.
What's your plan to deal with that?
Yeah, that backs up pretty fast.
My big plan is we get just a bucket, and then you have your hazardous material bags, those red bags, because afterwards you don't want to be like, okay, which one's garbage and which one's human waste.
Well, it depends. I don't know. You might want to have the fake bag and throw it at one of your friends.
And there's some really cool solutions out
Or
there
enemies.
that are actually made specifically for this purpose, that actually contain chemicals and coagulants and so forth, or congealants, I guess, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
To deal with your waste.
Yeah, and there's different things that can help eliminate that smell. I mean, that's one of the biggest things that annoy people in a disaster scenario is, yeah, you're hungry, yeah, you're frustrated, but so many people that I've talked to that have survived a situation, they'll complain about the smell. And that's the thing that just rings true. And so you want to have something that's going to make that life a little bit simpler. Whether it's an earthquake, whether, it's just the power grid goes down randomly because somebody forgot to do their job. It could be a million different things. It could be an ice storm. I remember last year we had a few ice storms that lit a few power poles on fire.
You got caught up in one of those.
And took out half the power in Murray. And it was crazy because I didn't have power again for almost 20 hours. And I had neighbors like, what do I do? And they'd go to the store, and the store didn't have power either. And they're like, well, I have nothing I can do all day. And I'm like, I'm good. I keep yourself busy. Grab a book. If you're not working from home, go somewhere else and do something. But it's so interesting how, if you're not planning, if you don't have a plan of action, you don't have a list of things to do to stay on task, you can totally get lost.
And in those times, resources are going to become minimal, are going to become sparse. And if you're prepared, you're not going to have to compete for those resources.
Absolutely. So what do you recommend as far as putting a plan together? You said you started talking about your 7 topics. Let's start that list over again.
Okay.
Let's go through the whole list real quick and then break out each point.
Okay. So, the first one is shelter. And then you have
Oh,
your water.
you know what? I'm going to cut you off. We're
Okay.
about to go into a break. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in 2 minutes. You're listening to PrepperCon Radio on K-Talk. Find us at KTKK on Twitter or K-Talk Radio on Facebook.
And the largest indoor shooting range. The Armory features 18 climate controlled lanes with
Topics.
state-of-the-art target carriers and
Or
air
back to
systems.
that. I know we've
The
kind of
Armory
jumped
has a
off, but-
vast selection of rental guns for use on the range, including machine guns. The Armory's facility and firearm training programs are designed with your personal safety and enjoyment as a priority. Many services are offered, including classes, gunsmithing, and a cutting-edge training simulator. Whether you're a beginner or an experienced marksman,
Training
the
simulator, that
in-depth
sounds
training,
like fun.
highly qualified
Yeah, just a
instructors, and custom
laser
designed
target.
That's what I
facility
figured.
will get you to
That's
where
pretty
you
cool.
want to be as a shooter. Head on in to experience the newest
Actually,
indoor
a couple
shooting
of those
range
are
in the
gonna
state,
be at
just
Oh, really?
off the freeway at 248
Well, 'cause
West
you said that they're
9210
building
South in
kill-bots.
Sandy.
gonna
Online
be
at
a single machine.
armoryshootinrange.com or
Actually,
call
it's-
801-447-1789.
You get to
The
hit
Armory
something with
Shooting
something.
Range,
Or
just
somebody with
off the
something.
freeway at
Yeah,
248
something.
West
That'll be
9210 South in Sandy.
Pretty fun.
But you'll feel the recoil.
Is your furnace giving you trouble? Or perhaps you didn't get around to replacing that
Okay,
old
so you
AC
got
unit?
number one.
CTR Heating and Air is the locally
let's
owned and
circle back
operated
to number
HVAC
one.
company you
Go
can
through the
trust.
list.
Check them out
We'll
on
talk about
Angie's
what we
List.
can do.
They're also Gephardt approved and
derailed
have years
me
of
at number
experience
two.
that will
I
assure
guess
your
we could
home
probably
is a perfect
touch on each topic
all
a bit,
year
like
round.
shelter.
Turn to the
What
experts.
kind of
CTR
shelter?
Heating
Is
and
it
Air is
just
an
a
authorized
jacket
dealer for
or-
Carrier, the leading name
Obviously,
in
you
furnace
got your
and air
home, your
conditioning
apartment,
systems.
wherever you live.
Yes, CTR Heating and Air offers
talk
the
about why
best price
shelter,
and
too.
quality
I think
furnace and AC equipment, but
People
they
don't understand
also
why
service most
shelter's so
manufactured
important.
You're
brands.
exposed for
CTR will
3
always
hours
provide you with a straightforward
weather.
assessment
Yeah.
of the service
But
required
it's
of
also,
your
and like
furnace
the other
or
thing
AC
is,
unit
like
running
one thing I love to
smoothly
hit
and
on is just the
efficiently.
morale
Get ready
of
for
it
the
all.
cold weather.
You know,
Take advantage of
like,
CTR's
I
early
talked to
bird
Scott a
furnace
little bit
tune
about
special
Hatchet.
for the low
You know,
price of
just love the book
$39
Hatchet,
or a
and the
complete
second
furnace
he finds the
diagnostic
cave,
for only
his whole
$59.
perspective
Free with any
on
repair.
everything
Call today,
changes. Because now he's got something over his head. You know,
801-999-4220.
now
That's
he's got a fire.
801-999-4220.
Yeah.
801-999-4220.
Yeah.
Or visit them online at ctrheatingandair.com.
You're not
You
you
need
when
to
you're
feel
hungry.
safe.
Lucky for
Number
you,
two is food.
Snickers has an extremely
Yeah.
satisfying
That
new way
can
to make you
change based
feel
on
more
person.
like yourself.
Or number two would be
Snickers
water.
Extreme.
I always say
More of what
water.
you love about
Because you
Snickers.
die faster.
Die faster.
Right,
Yeah,
that's not
exactly.
Maslow's theory.
What, air?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Air, well, obviously.
Snickers
What, 3 minutes without air, 3 hours without shelter,
Snickers.
Yeah.
3
3
days without water,
Snickers
3 weeks without food.
Snickers handles your hunger so you can handle the other things in life that aren't related to hunger
But
at
yeah,
all.
like,
Satisfy
your
hunger
driving
side,
force will
stop
be
by your
hunger,
local
because
retailer
that'll be your
and
immediate
Right, so you think,
Today,
okay, I need
Geico's
to
stuff found in your
deal
car
with this
takes us
first,
under
yeah.
your passenger seat.
But you really need to have
Hello,
shelter first.
darling. Remember me?
Some water.
That earring you lost?
Hey, watch
Yeah.
Jared
I
Reels,
thought
don't
we were
they?
close.
Yeah, I know.
But then it took 15 minutes to notice I was missing in this ghastly
My
car thing.
favorites.
That's
Funny
15
one,
minutes you
yeah,
could have used to switch your car
Yeah,
insurance
that
to
Stroud is
Geico and
awesome.
saved hundreds of dollars. Money you could use for new earrings.
Always being
Wouldn't that be
facetious.
nice?
Yeah.
For you.
Geico. 15 minutes.
Everybody
quick
does.
savings.
It's a fun show,
More
but,
on
you
car
know,
insurance.
don't follow,
Visit
don't do what it is.
geico.com today.
You might die. You might die.
Yeah, and he was never legit. All right, welcome back to PrepperCon Radio. We're on K-Talk Radio. I just love being here. It's fun to talk about emergency preparedness. It's fun to talk about the issues. Today we have in studio, we've got Spencer Schwendiman. He's from Everyman Preparedness. He's just a phenomenal resource. We started talking about just kind of his 7 tips that everyone needs to kind of to follow just to be a little bit better prepared. We went through number 2. Let's start over at the list for anyone that just joined us, and we'll run through the list real quick, and then let's jump back at number 2 and kind of finish that
All right,
conversation.
cool. Yeah, so the list, I call it the 7 categories, you know, and everybody has a different list for their categories, but obviously when you break it down into the important things, number 1 is shelter. You know, we were talking a little bit about shelter beforehand. If you're exposed to the elements, that'll kill you pretty quick, but also morale-based, you really want to have a roof over your head if you're out and running around.
And I guess one aspect of that for me, I'm sorry to interrupt,
No, you're good.
is having a good jacket. You're out there. I mean, for me, that makes me feel so much better when I'm out in bad weather.
Oh yeah,
Sorry.
definitely. Oh no, you're fine. Like, that's one thing that people don't realize when you talk about shelter, clothing is one of the most important things, because that's your number 1 shelter. You know, that's
Yeah.
the shelter you carry around with you.
Well, ultimately it's protection against the elements. That's what we're looking for.
Exactly.
Whether that's a wonderful building with a nice cozy fireplace or a tarp. You got to have something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, or even just a poncho. You know, like I keep multiple ponchos in my kits.
I'm a Gore-Tex kind of guy.
Gore-Tex is pretty great. I do love Gore-Tex. But you know, so shelter's my number 1 in the 7 categories, and then I go on to water because in your list of needs, you can only last 3 days without water, and that's minimal activity. But if you're in a bug out situation, or if you're in a high stress situation, you're going to want that water a lot more than if you're just chilling around, hanging out reading a book or something like that. And so my number 2 is always water. I always carry at least a liter per day in my kits, but then I also have, I call it my purification kit, where it's all in an Nalgene bottle, and I've got coffee filters to filter out the bugs. I've got filters, I've got the straws, I've got the purification drops, because that way if you do find a water source, you're not going to, get yourself sick.
Absolutely.
As well as filtration, I guess, in addition to purification.
Yeah, definitely.
One of the things a lot of people forget about is filtration. They think, oh, if I find some water, I'm good. I actually tested out Mill Creek last year with a life straw, and that was as bare bones as I'll even attempt that water. I would actually prefer to run it through like a Sawyer filter or a Renovo filter. But there's floaties in there, there's road runoff. I mean, you never know what's going to be in the water. You really can't see it. There's so many bacteria that's just tiny.
And if you compromise your health in a surround situation when drinking bad water, you're in a world of hurt.
Absolutely.
Not fun.
All right, what's your next one?
My next one is food. We were talking a little bit about this. Your basic instinct is going to go for food, because when you're hungry, and you want that food. I always carry a Cliff Bar, even if it's just to school. I'll always have just something that I can munch on, because that's the kind of person I am. I'm not the kind of person who likes to sit down and eat a huge meal. I'm the kind of guy who likes to just eat throughout the day. So small things like trail mix, Cliff Bars, granola bars, anything like that. But then also MREs. I love MREs.
Yep.
I'm one of those weird guys who, I could eat an MRE for lunch and be totally fine.
What's your recommendation for keeping MREs in your food storage?
Keeping MREs, I do. Not solely MREs, but
Let's back up a second. So for those listening in, an MRE is a meal ready to eat. It's basically a meal in a tiny little skinny box that the military
ration.
Military ration. Really fantastic. Some of them you need to cook, and some of them come with a little cooking filament.
little sleeve.
Yeah, it's this little sleeve. Some don't. Actually, we've got a caller. Hopefully he's got something he can chime in on solutions for
Not looking
for
for
food.
Paul.
Hey, you're live on K-Talk.
Yeah, hi guys, hey, great show.
Thank you.
I'm interested in a product, and I've heard of it before. Maybe you guys know about it. It's a stove that burns organic material like leaves and grass and sticks and things, which everybody has laying around their house, but it's smokeless. Are you guys familiar with that?
I'm not familiar with it.
No.
What does it apply to in particular? Is it for?
Well, I've got much like grass clippings and leaves just sitting around, and I'm thinking that could be a resource one of these days when we don't have gas running into our house. And I'd like to be able to cook inside, or at least warm my house with a stove. And I know they exist, but if it's spews smoke, it'd be a problem.
So are you talking about maybe a compost and recovering the heat off of a compost pile? Is that what you're referring to?
Well, that would be an outdoor application. I'm
Right.
looking for something you can either. I mean, I know I could cook it in my grill if I needed to cook some food, but I just thought maybe you could bring it inside and be able to provide heat for your family during the winter with it.
Yeah, there's very few things you can use inside, but tell you what, I will do some research on that and see if I can figure out what you're talking about.
Yeah, because I listen to you guys every week. So yeah, if we could follow up on that next week, that would be cool.
You bet.
I just actually found a quick resource on that. It's mb-soft.com talks about the Heat Green, a non-fossil fueled home heating furnace. Could be a good place to start. Talks about the process of photosynthesis and the breakdowns of your grass, your leaves. But this says it can be used inside. I haven't read the whole thing, but it's worth a look. Check it out.
Cool.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, could you give me that? I'm grabbing a pen here. It's MBE. Did you say?
So MB is in Marlon Brando. That's a fun one to throw out there. mb-soft.com.
Oh, I'm just trying to write this down.
And we'll go ahead and put that on our Facebook and Twitter and so forth so you can see that.
MB.
Cool. I'll get that up there in the next few minutes for you.
Okay, I can't write it anyway. Thanks. We're too low.
All right. Thanks for calling in.
Okay, so we're to food.
We're to food, yeah, and stoves are an important part. I cover that at like number 5 with my heat and fire, but with some people, especially with water too, going back to water, if you're going to boil water, you do need a stove. And I like to keep freeze-dried food, like the Mountain House meals and stuff. I like those too, just in the little pouches. So
they're quick. They're really quick.
They're quick and they're delicious and they're quite fulfilling.
Yeah.
And so
much more than Cliff Bar, right?
Much more than a Cliff Bar. Cliff Bar is great, but
for a quick snack, yeah.
For a quick snack, yeah. So with the food, I always try to carry. I'm a 2,000 calorie kind of guy, but some people, they'll bust it down to 1,800 calories or something like that per day. Food storage is a huge thing. I'm kind of bad with food storage right now. I live in a small little apartment, so
it's gonna be tough.
Yeah, we're trying to up our game, and so I'm trying to build some shelves that I can base just on food storage. But one thing that I've discovered recently, if you don't want to keep extra water for your cooking, is if you've probably seen this, you buy the canned food that's in water, not in the syrup.
Right.
Yeah, and so that's what I've been recommending to people lately is
absolutely. Canned food, where you've got it's high water content, so it keeps on your shelf for literally decades.
Yeah, exactly. And then if you do have that freeze-dried food, you don't have to keep the extra water in storage with that canned food.
Absolutely. So after food?
After food, we move on to hygiene. We were hitting on that a little bit. That's as small as a hand sanitizer to as big as, you can have the porta potty in the backyard if you need to.
Yeah, and that's what we do. I know you were saying you have the 5-gallon buckets. That's a great resource. One of the many uses of the wonderful 5-gallon buckets. We have, I've got a lot of girls in my house, so we have actual porta potty.
Yeah.
They're actually very efficient on your water usage, and much easier to deal with the waste once you can use it in the house. You don't have to leave the house, but then you can dispose of it outdoors after that.
And it's a little bit easier to have somebody use than a porta potty.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I also like to keep not really baby wipes, but wet naps. If you need a quick shower, a wet nap is perfect. True. And I don't recommend that for an everyday use, but in a disaster, something feels better than nothing.
And exactly, it makes you feel better, it increases your morale.
Yeah,
absolutely. The best thing you can have is a way to get rid of those things.
Yeah.
A way to keep yourself clean. We got another caller coming in on the line. Here we go. Hey, thanks for calling in. You're live on K-Talk.
Yeah, this is Tom. None of my dad, grandparents, his parents, his grandparents ever had to use none of this stuff. Why do you think I have a chance that I'm going to be using it?
That's a great question.
Excellent question.
That's a fantastic question. I'll field that for a second, then I'll let Shane take over. But number one, if you look at what's going on in the world, just in terms of natural disasters, and you don't even touch the political spectrum of what's going on, what could be happening. There's so many more instances of earthquakes now than there were 20 years ago. There's so many more instances of fluke weather storms now than there were 20 years ago. And if you look back at your parents, especially your grandparents, they probably didn't have all this gear because it was part of their way of life. My grandpa, when we'd go camping, he would dig a latrine.
That's true. They knew how to do it naturally. You're right.
Absolutely. And so we've lost a lot of those skills, and I think that's where the gear comes in. People get very gear-centric here nowadays. But the skills, if you've got the skills, you don't need to buy gear. You've got a handy shovel, some cordage, and some branches lying around, you can build, well, not branches, probably closer to logs. You could build your own latrine. You could find a solution. If you've got the skills and the knowledge and the know-how, you can find a solution for anything that you're covering.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great topic. What I was going to say is that it doesn't take a weatherman to tell you which way the wind's blowing, right? Yeah. You don't have to be a weatherman to know what's going on outside. Just stick your head outside. And if you're aware, like I said before, you can be prepared. And if you are watching the mainstream media, you're not going to see really what's going on out there. Not going to know the truth of what's going on.
Yeah, and my rule is always it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it.
Absolutely.
And a lot of my stuff that I do have, I take it camping. I don't have to have camping gear and preparedness gear. It's all the same thing. You know, if you look into your camping gear, half that stuff is what you're going to be using in a survival situation. But it's also, yeah, we're moving away from that self-sufficient lifestyle where we do have to go to the store every night.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the funny thing is if you look at just the simple nature of toilet paper, you know, you can't store enough of that stuff.
No.
Because you're always going to run out, and at that moment, you've just run into a disaster, right?
And now think about diapers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a million different things that can and will go wrong in a normal day-to-day life, and you just don't want those to become disasters, and so you just take a little extra effort to prepare. So, you know, coming back to your point, you don't need all this crazy gear. You don't need to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on a toilet solution for your house, a backup system. But take a class. You know, get an extra bucket, some treatment, and you're good. I mean, there's so many different solutions because as soon as the sewer line backs up, now you have a real disaster.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a problem.
Learn about how our ancestors did it. How did they not deal with it with that before toilet paper?
Absolutely. Hey, thanks for...
Yeah, one issue we have, we don't relate with the ancestors anymore here. That's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think one of the best things we can do for our youth is get them with their grandparents, and if their grandparents aren't around, you know, have them go visit the old folks' homes and do service. Because that's awesome. You can hear some cool stories and learn a lot of great things. So thanks for calling in. We appreciate your time. If anybody else wants to call in, we are still here. It's 801-254-5855. We've got a few more minutes before we get to our next break. Spencer, what's the next point on your list? We got a lot to go through.
So, I just want to hit, you've got girls at your house, feminine hygiene products.
Absolutely.
You got to store a bunch of those because, you know, you want them to be comfortable.
Yes.
But the next one is the heat and the fire. We're coming into winter right now, and so I just got a new bag too, so what I do is I always, when the winter hits, I buy a bunch of hand warmers, bunch of body warmers, and I shove them in every nook and cranny that's open, because getting cold is not fun. And so it goes back to the shelter, but it's also talking about self-sufficiency, knowing how to start a fire, knowing how to, the important things especially.
Yeah. And that's one thing we're going to talk about in the next couple of weeks as well, is more survival, where we're talking about fire building and so forth.
Well, that's one of my favorite things. You know, I was a Boy Scout. I love fire, so not in the arsonist sense, but in the you know, the being able to make something and say, you know, oh, I did this, I made this fire, this is mine.
Just like Tom Hanks.
Just like Tom Hanks, favorite line.
I think everybody gets excited about fire, and the reality is anybody can light a match, anybody can light a lighter. But lighting and starting a fire is a little bit different. It's delicate.
Yeah.
You know, if you just try to light logs, I'm sorry, that's just not going to work.
No.
You've got to prepare your chippings. You've got to prepare your really small, fine tinder, because that's going to catch your light, and that's going to hold it, and that's going to build your fire, and then it's easy to keep that fire going. To keep that fire stoked, it's just adding a new branch.
And when you're in a survival situation, you want to make it as easy as possible.
Oh, yeah. So, extra work is never fun.
That's right.
Absolutely. It's all about simple living. And we get overcomplicated with so many different things that bringing it back to the basics, bringing it back to 2 generations ago. Now, that's how I got started in this, is my grandparents were huge campers, and they were huge gardeners. I thought that was normal.
Yeah.
And then when I moved away from Idaho and moved to Colorado, everyone's like, wait, you camp all the time? And there's a ton of campers out there, but in grade school, not everybody camps. You know, and gardening, nobody gardened. It was crazy, but my parents kept that tradition going on, and that's really kind of where I would like to bring preparedness back to, is just the basic, simple living.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
All right.
So, yeah, that fire and that heat, you know, and it also goes back to a morale standpoint, you know, if we're just going to talk about that. Do we have a caller?
We do. We're going to, caller, hang on. We're going to bring you on right after the break.
Okay.
We're leading into it. We've got a few seconds before we go. Why don't you hit the next topic?
The next one, heat and fire, and then it is, oh, I just blanked on my own topics. Tools is 7, so we'll hit tools real quick.
Yeah, let's hit tools right when we come back. You guys are listening to K-Talk Radio.
I just forget one.
Thanks for being with us. We'll be right back.
Heat and fire, and then we've got
heat and fire.
Heat and fire.
What would I put in there?
Because like tools is your communication, your protection, your fun stuff.
Okay.
Heat and fire. Scott, how did I forget this?
I don't know.
Hi, this is Alan Blood with Capital Financial.
I thought I did.
Home values increasing and low rates still available. Now is the perfect time to refinance your home. Capital Financial Group, we have loan programs to fit your refinance needs.
Here we
Whether
go.
you want to pay
Anything
cash
from
out for
K-Talk?
your home, decrease your interest rate and monthly
Are you
payment,
there?
or just reduce your loan to a 15-year payoff. We have programs that
what I
will
did.
help you
I hit
refinance
food
even if
in
your
there.
income or
sorry?
credit is less than it used to be, or if you're underwater on your mortgage. Instead of
Chauncey?
getting lost in the shuffle with a big bank or paying high fees at a credit
Okay.
union, call us. We'll help
Well,
you
we're actually going to be
refinance
having
with
some
the best
gardeners
rates
on
and
in the next few
closing
weeks
costs.
if you want to keep.
You may even qualify
tuning
for
in,
one
we'll
of our
have those for you.
no-cost loans. Call me today, Alan Blood, at 801-298-5887 to start
Okay.
saving money on your
All
mortgage
right,
now.
thanks.
801-298-5887.
Chauncey. All right, I'll write that down.
3146.
I'm smiling because I can enjoy my life again without worrying about the IRS or how I'm going to support my family. My friends told me about
first aid.
TaxDebtPros.com, a local Utah full-service tax resolution company. The professionals at TaxDebtPros.com
That's my favorite one,
did a
too.
free
Yeah.
case analysis and explained everything to me clearly in a language I can
might wanna
understand. They
keep
got
on this
right to
field.
work, and now I'm paying a
I
small
remember
portion
it
of
now.
what I did before. The best part
Don't
is
be
I
mean.
got my life and smile back.
Do you have IRS problems? The local experts at
I'm an idiot. I've got it on my
TaxDebtPros.com assist business owners and individuals in resolving tax issues. They can help reduce your tax debt and penalties, assist with IRS
I always
audits,
forget
stop
one.
wage garnishment,
No matter
tax
what I'm
liens
doing,
and
I
levies,
always forget
and prepare unfiled tax returns. Get
okay.
help now.
Yeah.
TaxDebtPros.com will completely handle your case with the IRS and take your stress away so you can start smiling again. Visit them online at taxdebtpros.com or
Well,
call
that's
them
what I've
today,
been working on lately. I need to get my third one out. Is I've been
878-0363
trying
to
to go
schedule your
through
free
the 7
case analysis.
categories.
I recently
With
met
a
with a
blog post on
homeowner who was
every
ready to
one.
retire
One thing
but
I
felt
just
trapped
started
in his
to
job
really
because
kind of
his
put together in
retirement
my
funds had
brain
gone down substantially over the
is,
last few
yeah, first of all,
years,
you
and
have
he
to be
needed
aware.
the income from his
Second
job
of
to
all,
make payments on his home. Reviewing his
you've,
options, he realized a reverse mortgage would pay
realize
off his
you're
current
vulnerable.
loan, give him
Yeah.
some money to
Another kind
take
of
care of
minute
much
details.
needed repairs
Then you
and
have to look at
eliminate
your
his
beliefs,
monthly mortgage
because
payment.
your
That's a
beliefs
good one.
determine your
If
actions.
you own your home, you're 62 or
your
older, you
beliefs
may
will
qualify for a
handicap
reverse
you. So if
mortgage,
you believe
which
the
will help
government's
you meet your
going to be able to
retirement
help,
goals.
or if you
I have
believe
years of
that
experience helping Utah homeowners.
FEMA's going to be here in 48 hours.
or if you believe that nothing like this could ever happen
help
to
you
us,
find out how
then
you
you're
qualify and how reverse
you're
mortgage
done.
can help you.
And then after that, yeah, make a plan.
298-5887.
And then
That's
you
Alan Blood,
get to work.
Capital Financial.
Yeah.
801.
I have make a budget. That's my next one. You got to make a budget because
Here's a
for me
program
especially,
reminder from
you know, I don't make a
Canyon
lot of
Creek
money.
Assisted
My
Living
wife's
Memory
not
Care.
working,
Canyon Creek is
so
co-sponsor
everything
of
I
the
do,
K-Talk Season
I can only
Citizens
spend like
Network,
50 bucks
now
a
at
month.
12:05
preparedness
Saturday
stuff.
afternoon. This is Rich Dixon, host of the
Yeah.
program, and we'll be telling you this week
Because
about
that's
active
'cause I get my
folks
battle
over age
box every month, so I
55
had
who
to
are
drop it
still
down,
making
but-
things happen. Ideas about
I
health,
love that
wealth,
battle
and
box
wisdom,
too much.
and news from Canyon Creek. They're at
I have my
7235
opinion.
Union
We'll
Park
defer
Avenue.
that for another day.
Describe
Well,
the
here's my problem with
residents and their
Battle Box. It's a
families
lot of
in
fun,
glowing
and I
terms.
think
Quote,
the reason
I've
why
never
I'm
seen
still
a speck of
subscribed is I
dust
love
at
getting
Canyon
stuff in
Creek.
the mail.
It's
Like I
close
love
by.
getting
The
a
stars
package
are
every month.
immaculately
And
clean.
like
A
half
real
the crap
treat
I throw
runs through
away,
the garden.
or I like
Lots
put
of
in the
fresh air.
corner.
It's
I'm
beautiful.
like, I don't
They
need
fulfill
this.
requests for
And I
certain
think that's
food
my
for my
biggest
grandmother,
complaint there is,
and I'm so
is
pleased.
I've
To
gone through
reach
so much
Canyon
gear,
Creek,
so many
call
things that I like, no, I don't like that, it makes it better. I mean, from flashlights
tour
to
of the
fire
Canyon
stars
Creek
and
facilities, and
So,
listen to their radio show
to just
now,
order something that
Saturdays
somebody else
at
recommends to you,
12:05.
it's not always going to be the best fit, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree.
So, I think it's a great concept, though.
It is.
I kind of like, yeah, I love getting the cool stuff. I was going to spend that kind of money.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to PrepperCon Radio at K-Talk. That's KTKK, K-Talk, AM 630, but you already know that because you're listening, so thank you. We are excited. We've got the Prepared Guy here with us as usual, and Spencer Schwendiman from Everyman Preparedness. We're talking about his list of 7 things that you need to be doing, which falls in line with, you know, the 5 things that preppers or non-preppers need to do to get ready. This is probably the most basic list, but it covers so many things, and it's just simple. And you don't have to be rich to do all these things. A lot of it's just building skills and budgeting. And those are actually some things we're going to get into. What was your next one on the list?
Next one was first aid. I went back in my notes and I found it. It's first aid. I love first aid. When you're talking about building skills, I recommend that everybody take at least just even a basic first aid class, even if it's your babysitter first aid.
First responder.
Yeah, like, and so I carry a first aid kit with me everywhere I go. It's, you know, even as small as a couple of Band-Aids, because the one thing that we don't realize is we use first aid skills every day of our life. You know, Band-Aids or, you know, you'll run into something and I can tell you, okay, this is a hypothermic situation, or this is, you know, you've got a heavy burn, we need to get you help. And so,
I can't tell you how many times that people are saying, hey, anybody have a Band-Aid? Do you have a Band-Aid?
Oh yeah.
The most basic of first aid needs, and you don't have one.
All the time. And so, yeah, I carry a first aid kit with me everywhere I go. I keep first aid kits in all my kits. I have first aid kits littering my house. My poor wife, you know, I either come home with a new knife or a new first aid kit.
Now, do you put your own together? Or what's
I do both. I have my built first aid kit that I put together myself, and then I also, you know, Scott knows them. My medic guys, they build some of the best first aid kits I've ever come across.
I totally agree.
And they've got killer sales all the time.
Oh yeah.
So watch their website. Follow them on Facebook. It's
local company.
Yeah, mymedicus.com. We love them. I've got like 6 of their packs.
Oh yeah.
And I've got, in every car I've got a different pack, always. And whenever we go camping, I've got my big mega bag that I take. And it's funny because I actually took that to a scout camp this summer. Didn't end up needing it, thankfully, but I didn't know how to use probably a third of it.
That's just what I was going to say. Do you know how to suture?
I have no clue. It's one of the things I need to learn.
And
but I had 9 doctors on this trip, and none of them brought their first aid kits. And I thought to myself, holy crap, I'm so glad I brought this, because in case we've got it. You know, I pulled a Band-Aid out, and that's all I needed, which is amazing working with scouts. Scouts are going to break things, and usually themselves, faster than anybody else that I've worked with, and it's a lot of fun. But yeah, first aid kit and just the knowledge of what to do with it. You don't have to have a crazy big bag like mine. No. But the basic bags, the basic kits, it's a good starter.
Oh yeah.
And once you know what your family uses a lot of, then you just go buy those to refill and replenish your kit and make your own custom kit.
Yeah, and that's the one big thing about the custom kit is you put it together and you know how to use everything. Because, you know, I've purchased a big bag before too, and I open it up and I'm like, why do I need 2 surgery kits?
Yeah.
I don't know how to perform surgery on anybody, you know, and if you're lucky you'll have doctors nearby but who do know how to use it. But, you know, I love my first aid kits. And yeah, it's as simple as a Band-Aid. You know, my first rule is with my first aid kit, I have it, I don't want to open it.
And it's as simple as having a few Band-Aids in a Ziploc baggie in your daily bag, in your like women in your purse.
Absolutely. You know, it's funny, you go anywhere, especially if you're with a mom and she's got kids, especially little kids, she's always going to have a couple things. Hand sanitizer, wipes.
And Band-Aids.
And Band-Aids.
Yep.
I mean, even if it's not a catastrophic, you know, giant gaping wound, if it's just a little tiny scratch, you know, that's a good morale thing for kids. They love the safety of having a Band-Aid on.
Oh yeah.
And
they just love that feeling.
So if it's already, you know, stressful situation, it's great to have that to add to it to make it a little bit easier for that child to get through. And it also helps the parent feel a little more calm and comfortable, especially when their child is actually feeling nurtured and feeling safe. The worst thing is when your child's freaking out and you can't do anything to help.
Oh, most definitely. So yeah, that's number 6. You know, it kind of ties with heat and fire on my list. I go back and forth between the two, but coming into the winter, heat and fire takes the top.
Absolutely.
Well, just don't watch too much of Bear Grylls.
Oh,
You
yeah.
may not need your first aid kit, right?
You know, that's one of the things that I think is crazy. If you watch that show, it's fun, it's entertaining, but it's not realistic.
No.
You know, he jumps into hypothermic situations to show you what it's like. Well, what you don't realize is off camera, they've got everything they need. They've got an EMT there. They've got paramedics. They've got heat blankets ready to go in case he can't warm up fast enough.
Well, and even if they don't, they have the safety button. You know,
Yep.
he can call in a helicopter right away. I don't have one. I don't know.
And that's a topic we could talk
either.
about it for an entire show about what he does that's not kosher in a survival situation.
Yeah. So and then you know, number 6, the first aid kits. That kind of leads into number 7, which is tools. And tools are the fun things that you buy. That's my knives, you know, or you know, you go out and you buy these fun new things. But it's also it comes down to communication. You know, just a 2-way radio or even just an emergency radio so you can figure out what's going on right now. Or protection. That's a big one.
Yep, which we're going to talk about next week.
Yep. Next week we'll have Ready Man in studio.
Oh, there you go.
They're going to be talking about protection with us. It's also going to be Veterans Day, which is awesome, and these guys are veterans. So how better to spend our Veterans Day next week than to have some veterans in studio. So that's our list of 7, right? If you have something you think we missed or you want added to the list, give us a call, 801-254-5855. We would really love to hear from you. Everyone has different points that